Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Digital Arts Festival show. I'm Jim Sirianni, your host with the most. I always have to use that joke. Very excited to be with you today to talk about what's going on in the arts here in Santa Barbara and all over the world, actually. And this show is part of the Digital Arts Festival that is produced by Center Stage Theater of Santa Barbara, here in Santa Barbara, California. And the Digital Arts Festival shows stream nightly at 7 p.m. now through April 30th. And you can find more about the Digital Arts Festival and about Center Stage on their website, centerstagetheater.org. Again, that's centerstagetheater.org, and just click on the blog tab in the upper right-hand corner of that page, and it'll take you to the Digital Arts Festival blog and show you all the information about the artists that we've had on so far and today's interviews as well. The purpose of the Digital Arts Festival is to create an outlet for artists of all kinds to share their work. And we will have dance, theater, music, film, visual arts, poetry, storytelling, comedy, and much, much more. And again, you can learn more on the Center Stage website, centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab. And also, if you feel so inclined, if you'd like to make a donation to Center Stage Theater, you can certainly do so on the website as well. My guest today is Samuel Simon, and Samuel describes a play that he's written, which is called The Actual Dance. It's his work that he calls his fourth age, and we'll delve into that a little bit today. He comes to it after a career as a prominent member of America's consumer movement. He's trained as a lawyer in his first career. He started his career as one of the original members of Ralph Nader's very first legal advocacy group in Washington, D.C. back in 1970. And after a stint in the military, Sam returned to work with Ralph Nader and then started his own consulting firm. During that time, Sam became a regular in the national news, appearing in programs such as Face the Nation, The Today Show, CBS Morning News, Good Morning America, and many others. And now, fast forward to around 2013, when he began to devote himself full-time to his play, The Actual Dance. Not only is Sam the playwright and performer of The Actual Dance, he also is the artistic director of the company that has been formed to produce the show. And on today's show, we're going to learn how he got to his fourth age, or his fourth career, if you will, and the journey in between the first and the fourth. And so now at this time, I'd like to welcome to the show Sam Simon. Samuel, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And Sam is what I go by. Samuel's the professional name.
All right. Well, we'll go by Sam.
Center Stage. I want to thank Center Stage for doing this. It is obviously a very trying and difficult time in the country, and this is really a gift to us, the artists, and hopefully helpful to Center Stage as well.
Right. Well, thank you for saying that. And yes, I'd like to just echo that a little bit and say as well that, you know, we're all very thankful that Center Stage is doing this, and it's a great way to connect with the artistic community in such a weird time that we're in right now. So the first question I have for you, Sam, right off the bat, I have to ask, what was it like to work with Ralph Nader?
Well, at the time, 1970, at the end of the 60s and into the early 70s, which was also a very difficult time for the country. And there was a lot going on in the streets. There was violence, there was bombings, and I had made a decision. I was motivated to want to do something, and trained as a lawyer. I had this unique and life-changing opportunity to go from, I was in Austin, University of Texas, to Washington, D.C., and be part of a unique approach that is using the law for change. Ralph Nader continues to this day. He has his own podcast even today. But he was innovating, and maybe a lot of people know him more from the year 2000. But in 1970, we were working on changing how the world views justice, how justice is understood, and the power of individuals and the rights of individuals to have a say in how both government works and redeeming themselves or becoming safer. And I will dare say that when people look back at that time, more lives have been saved by Ralph Nader. Most people don't understand the things they take for granted. Seat belts, airbags, auto safety standards didn't exist. The viewpoint was, if you drive a car, it's your job to be safe, period. And we understand that differently, that it's responsibility of manufacturers of all products to make them safe as used and as likely to be used by typical consumers. So that's an advertisement for Ralph, but it was heady. It was just a handful of us and doing things, and it set the course for, I like to talk now when I talk to students, be careful about your first job. It may set the rest of your life.
Right, right. Well, take us through your journey from becoming a lawyer to the military to consumer affairs and now playwright. Take us through that journey a little bit.
You know, the most interesting part for me has been that much of this has I like to say, found me. I went from being, consumer advocate working with Ralph, is very disorganized. Now, the Army wasn't.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the Army didn't like me very much. I almost was court-martialed for writing an article about what was called drug amnesty. It was in the Nation magazine. So my old Nader background almost got me. I think the thing I want to mention more than anything else is, as I moved into a career and started a company and started hiring people, I was a terrible boss. I got to tell you, I needed some training on how to be better in the world and with employees. And I started doing improv. I had done some community theater growing up. I was doing community theater in the Washington, D.C. area, and I found an improv troupe and started training. And I discovered, I was introduced to a company in New York called Artistic New Directions. And through them, there were summer improv retreats. I was privileged to work with people like Gary Austin, founder of the Groundlings in LA, Michael Gelman, who was at Second City, Carol Fox Prescott, who's still a fabulous acting and breath coach. And improv has taught me how to be better in the world and how to be present, how to be a good boss. And part of what I did, it attracted me, and I was doing more and more. And during the improv process, they had a technique called tell a story, write it down, perform it. Tell a story, write it down, perform it. But telling it was improvising the story. And I had a life event. In the year 2000, my wife, Susan, who was just fine, spoiler alert, went to advanced breast cancer. And we had been married then 34 years, and I was confronted with the likelihood at the time that she was not going to survive. And I had to discover how I was going to be able to go through that process. And I imagined the possibility of having to hold her in my arms as she took her last breath. And I started telling pieces of this story this was 12 years after the fact. I started working on this improv, started bringing this all back out of me. It was really through the improv process. And I recommend to anybody interested in theater or in life to go do some improv. It will change you. And it was through that process that the actual dance found me.
Oh,
And,
wow.
I still think that, and I like to say that everything in my life happened so I could find myself in this place to be able to bring this piece of theater. And I say that humbly because I could not have imagined, if you think about it, I could never have imagined that this was what I would be doing with my life. And I now see other artists and other, particularly solo theater. This would be one thing I hope we talk a little bit about too. is as a solo artist in solo theater, I do have now two musicians on stage with me. We've integrated music into the performance. Um, Being a solo artist is tough. It's self-producing as well, but it's powerful work, and I've been so moved uh, by this work. I'm privileged when people come to see it. And anyway, that's the story. You can
Yeah.
tell I get really excited about it.
Oh, well, that's great, and that's wonderful that you get excited about it, because that should happen with, with creators of all kinds. So tell us about the actual dance. What is the story about?
So the actual dance is the journey of what we have come to identify as the love partner. It's also sometimes called the caregiver. Um, in this instance, I'm the husband, and I have rebelled a little bit against the term caregiver because my relationship with my wife is not about the things I did do, which is caregiving. It's about my relationship as the person I love and facing the possibility. Um, so the story presents a place. Some might call it imaginary. I don't think it's imaginary. I've come to believe it's real. There's a place in the universe, and it's a ballroom. And in this ballroom, which exists in time in a different part of the universe, where when the, the fear and terror of doing what you know you have to do gets so great, you can find yourself in there. It's like a teleportation into this space in the world, and you are in this liminal state where you will eventually be surrounded by everyone you've ever met, ever known, ever loved, in a ballroom with a large orchestra playing the song that only you and your partner recognize. And it is a song of your heart. And you will dance to that. And at one point in that show, in that dance, your partner disappears into what I call um, the bright light of eternity. And so it's really about how do you get ready for that? And it is also a real life story. That's sort of the play jumps between the two places, between the here and now, the real world, holding Susan's, being in the hospital room with Susan is, I hold out that, semi-circled metal pen in front of her as, she gets sick, and taking care of her and having to um, be the strong one
Mhm.
uh, as the story unfolds, and it unfolds uh, as every such story does in its own unique way. It has its, I do this, ups and downs. The first doctor's appointment after her internist feels something funny, and you go to a surgeon who says, don't worry, it's just scar tissue from an old site, and then, no, it's cancer. And then, but don't worry, there's no cancer in the lymph nodes, and then, oops, I made a mistake. And then it keeps getting more and more dire, more dire. And Susan doesn't appear in the show, I have to say. It is the journey of the love partner. And it's how do you do that? There's humor in it, there's music in it, and there's Jewish themed uh, or Jewish content. It's not Jewish themed, the Jewish content happened to be a Jewish man. And so the story includes sitting in our congregation, and there is, who do you go to for help? So there's a medical side of it. We like to say it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and then it'll make you stand up and cheer, because it does have a happy ending. And so that's the show, and it is a true story. Uh,
Wow.
some people say, wait a minute, well, we always do talkbacks and discussions, and the first question is, how did you come up with this idea of a ballroom? And I said, well, I had these delusions. And my aha moment, by the way, came not with talking to the rabbi, or it could be a minister, but the rabbi seeking help. It was talking to the psychiatrist because I thought I was going crazy. I thought these images in my head, these like blackout moments and where I was someplace else, were, form of mental illness. The line in the show is, I wonder, no, I hope that they'll give me medication, to make these go away. So what's nice, not nice, I've discovered there are other artists. There is almost a genre, we call it arts and health, of artists. I'm in the unique position of not being the patient. I represent that love partner. It's a role that that is very frequent, very poorly understood, and rarely represented. There are also shows by patients, people. I have colleagues, Valerie David, who does the Pink Hulk. There are others who have had, there's a person that's a show about mental illness and suicide, and they speak in their own authentic voices, which has great power for the audience to hear it from them. And everybody has this, these artists tell the story of what they have learned through theater, often music, sometimes dance. I do have another, and we can talk about it. I now have a second artist or actor who performs the show. I'm this white, older Jewish guy. He happens to be a black African-American Christian guy who plays me in the show. But he represents telling the story from a different background, and it's a universal story.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like a very powerful piece. And are there plans once the quarantine is lifted, are there plans to produce in the near future or in the next
Well,
few
we
years?
just, had a couple of cancellations going. There's an organization I happen to live in Northern Virginia. Most of my artistic work has been in New York, and I'm going to come back and give a big shout out to Artistic New Directions. They're called A&D Theater Company right now, whose mission was to develop emerging artists. And here I am, I got to tell you, I knew nothing before that. But it was like Center Stage and so many smaller theater companies in the world. But yes, we're going to tour. I'm working on a book, which I hope will be out this fall, a book version of the show. Will be called The Actual Dance. And I'm working on adding yet another artist to perform. And he's based in San Francisco. I don't think I have permission to use the name yet, but somebody who's quite well known. And so that's the other part of my journey, right? I'm going to turn 75 in July. And as healthy and energetic as I hope I even sound, I'm realistic. And so I want the show to live on. And I'm so privileged and honored that others find meaning in the show. And those who, Chuck Obasi, who's based in New York and has performed, and by the way, Chuck makes a point. I'm the one who thinks that African-American audiences will relate a little bit more. This show is so intimate that you like to sort of see somebody who looks and act, and you can project your life story onto the artist. And so I like that about Chuck. And he can perform for any racial audience. It doesn't matter. But he tells it differently, and he had lost somebody close to him, not a wife, and he knew me, and he is a great artist, and we have him, by the way, choreographed. He has, unlike, to get into the arts part of this a little bit, I am an artist, an actor who's bound by my own experience. As hard as I try to break, I live this. And so as I perform it, as hard as I try, it's hard to get out of that.
Yeah.
Chuck is an actor, and he's reacting to the words as an actor does and should. The words, the playwright's words, and gives them meaning that I can't give them because I'm bound in this box. He's not, and he dances and he moves and beautifully performed. And the other, hopefully, actor soon will be also a dancer by background. So this is
Nice.
dance. This is not a dance genre. It is theater, uh, but it is attracting the dancers.
Nice. Well, we're almost out of time, but before we have to go, I just want to ask uh, one more question. What has surprised you through this whole journey, from lawyer to consumer affairs to playwright? What has surprised you the most through this whole journey?
Is the fact that almost every time I perform the show, I, the actor, learn something about what I wrote. And I'll tell you, I could never have imagined that as possible. I don't know if that was because of my narrow experience, although I've written other books in my history. They're, from back in the 80s, and they were, about things. Um, I did not understand my own journey until I kept performing it and seeing and understanding. I like to say now, and I didn't know this when I started, that the show is actually about what love really means. The line in the story early on is, I don't think two 20-year-olds really understood what love meant. And I come to understand that love means the gift of being able to hold the person you love most in your arms and to give them the comfort as they take their last breath. That is what love really means. And that I learned from doing my own work. And so it's like it was a gift to me. And I continue to do it. I have people in the audience who talk about their experiences, who have their own insights. Had a gentleman come up to me with his wife. We're in Indianapolis at their Fringe. And he just said, "Excuse me, sir, I saw your show the other night, and we just wanted to tell you that um, it has changed how I will relate to my wife forever. And we just wanted to thank you."
Wow.
Couldn't imagine that. I could. So it's the reaction, but it's more, and it's my own understanding of life and of love. And I love doing it. It is a passion, obsession almost.
Yeah.
My wish is that every artist, every performer uh, gets the same joy and energy out of their work, out of the work that they do. And that audiences come and see this work and um, can have a life transforming experience in the theater. That they'll walk out of the theater, whether the actual dance or any of the other good work put up at Central Stage and other places, and come out different because they see the world differently than when they walked in.
Wow. Wow, that's great. And theater should do that. Theater should have you leaving the theater changed in some way, even if it's very small or in a very big way. Theater should have an effect on you. And the play, I always feel my litmus test, if you will, is that if I'm still thinking about a play or a film or what have you long after I've left the theater, I always think that's incredible and remarkable. And I just want to wish you continued success with the show. And now it's been in Santa Barbara before, but maybe is it possible that you might be able to bring it to this area again?
Yes, I'm hoping that um, either this fall or next spring that we can do a sort of a West Coast tour. I want to be realistic. It's not about the market. It's about uh, the health risk. And I'm
Right.
hoping that theaters can open up again, um, but it might not be until the following spring that we can get back on the road. I'm looking forward to doing that. And yes, I'd love to come back to Santa Barbara and be, uh, I mentioned the audience at Center Stage. I have two things. I should have them with me upstairs on the wall. well, one is on my website. If you go to the website, theactualdance.com, I have poetry, and there's a poem by a woman who had been in the audience at Center Stage, and she was moved to write a poem and send it to me, and I have it up on stage. And somebody in the audience did a sketch of what they saw, and so I'd love to come back to Center Stage and do it again. And I've done it in Los Angeles, and I did it in Berkeley for the World Institute on Disability, a nonprofit disability advocacy group that I was on the board of for many years. So I have a lot of West Coast connections. Yes, I want to come back to the West Coast, and maybe we'll end up doing a book tour and performances.
There you go. That'd be great. We would love to see you back here whenever that is possible. And Sam, I just want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing your story with us, and continued success with the actual dance. And hopefully we'll see you out here in Santa Barbara soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And again, if you'd like to learn more about the actual dance, the website is theactualdance.weebly.com. And just go to that link and you can find out more. And also on the blog, on the Center Stage blog, a link to all of Sam's work will be on the blog as well. And you can check those out. And to learn more about Center Stage, you can go to centerstagetheater.org. Again, that's centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab to learn more about the Digital Arts Festival. I'm Jim Sirianni. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.